You're listening to the Woman of Value podcast. You are about to hear the story of a woman who is following her dreams and passions and creating positive change in the world.
A woman walked in and she had on a black t-shirt and it said, "One woman can." And it was a moment of total epiphany that, yeah, absolutely, one woman can. I can. Yes, I can. And it was time for me to really step into who I was meant to be and take care of me and focus on me, not in a selfish way, but I was at a point where I couldn't give to anybody else anyway. So, that was really kind of my moment of understanding that I needed to focus on me and my yes, I can.
My guest today is Cathy Alessandra. She is the Yes I Can coach. She's been an entrepreneur for over 23 years. She's owned 2 magazines and has had multiple best-selling books on Amazon. Her latest book just launched. It's called Dare to Be You. You were born to be brave, bold, and fabulous. I love that. And it focuses on you living your yes with the help of her signature yes method. So we're going to find out what that is in a few minutes, but I want to welcome Cathy.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you on the show to talk about all this positivity, and I can see in the background your yeses and all those positive messages. I've got a screen, you've got messages. Some people will be watching this, some people will be listening, but check out the video because there's a lot of cool stuff here in Cathy's office. So Cathy, I would love to know how you define woman of value.
Well, I think it's we as women really need to step into owning our power and what it is that we're doing, our purpose here on the earth, our purpose for our life, those that we are surrounded by and those that we can lift up. And I think women of value really has to do with living from our core values and what those are, and really doing that in everything that we do, right? So whether it's business, whether it's our personal life, whether it's relationships, whether it's friendships, and really stepping into being of value to others and allowing them to be of value to us too.
Nice.
Yeah.
So take us through that moment when you realized that you needed to claim your value.
Well, it was kind of a dark moment until I saw the light, right? So I had actually been an entrepreneur at that point for over 25 years, 23, 25 years, something like that. I had been married at that point about 27 years. I had 3 children. At that point, they were in high school, and I was going through a difficult time. My marriage was failing. My son was struggling with some drug use. My business was doing well, but I was pouring all of myself into that to basically escape everything else. And I had one of those aha moments, come to Jesus moment, whatever you want to call it. It was I knew I was on a path where it was self-destruction. I was losing myself in trying to save everybody else. And my marriage, my son, my all that, and some very close friends of mine. I was with them up in Santa Barbara, California, actually, and they could see it, and I couldn't. And they had a heart-to-heart with me about really stepping back from all of that. And thank God they did. And I ended up spending 24 hours up in Santa Barbara by myself, no computer, no phone, no TV. And I happened to pull out the book, The 4 Agreements. And that is kind of where it all began. Those 4 agreements, being impeccable with your word, which not only is about speaking about others, but, that little voice inside of our head that says we're not good enough, we're not smart enough, we're not thin enough, we're upright. And that voice was very loud and very negative. And not making assumptions, and always doing your best, those things. And so I really decided to try and start living from that point. And I got home a few days later and had made a decision to really take care of me. I was 220 pounds at that point, multiple blood pressure medications. I mean, I had really was on a path of destruction. And I was at the gym on a treadmill, the Saturday before Thanksgiving. So you can only imagine how empty the gym was, right? There's like nobody there on the Saturday before Thanksgiving. And a woman walked in and she had on a black t-shirt and had bling, really sparkly writing, which that was an attraction for me right there. I'm all about the sparkle. But it said, "One woman can." And it was a moment of total epiphany that, yeah, absolutely, one woman can. I can. Yes, I can. And it was time for me to really step into who I was meant to be and take care of me and focus on me, not in a selfish way, but I was at a point where I couldn't give to anybody else anyway. So, that was really kind of my moment of understanding that I needed to focus on me and my yes, I can. And the rest is kind of history over the next 5 years. Quite a
Wow.
journey, though. Yeah, quite a journey.
Yes, quite a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that tough time in your life. But you often have to get to that place of being at rock bottom to realize how far you have abandoned yourself and
Yes.
how important your self-care is. We are
Yes.
so not taught to take care of ourselves. We're taught that it's selfish. You even had to qualify that in your
Mhm.
conversation with me.
Mhm.
It wasn't
Mhm.
selfish. Like it didn't
Yeah.
even occur to me that it was selfish because I
Right.
know what self-care is. But so many people think, you know, don't focus on yourself. Don't talk about yourself. Don't
Mhm.
don't don't talk about your gifts. It's too weird and it's not humble enough. So we're taught to diminish and make ourselves smaller,
Mhm.
and it's really a disservice to not only us but to others. Like you
Right.
said, you could not be there for other people.
Mhm.
And I love that you had good friends who saw you and
Mhm.
saw what you were diminishing. That takes
Mhm.
a special friend, and not everybody can hear it. A lot of people will push those people away. People who are in abusive relationships are often completely blind or shut themselves down or don't want to hear it because they're so afraid of what's out there, what's next.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it is scary, right? And you have to have an open mind. And you're right. Those girlfriends, it was a safe relationship I had with those girlfriends. And I was at such a point of exhaustion and uncomfortableness, right? And so thank goodness I was at a place where I was willing to hear that and take it in and not, I'm not sure that I would have before then. The timing was right, and they knew that. And I was open to hearing that and making that change. And my entire life has changed. I mean, I'm now divorced. My son is thriving. My daughters also. I've got 3 children. Business is great. My third book has just come out. I've just bought a flat in Scotland, and I literally close on my a new condo here, which I never thought I'd be able to afford. I get the keys this afternoon. So it's it's really about stepping into it and through that fear and doing the work. And there is the other side. There's definitely the other side.
Yes, there is. And you and I had spoken before we did the podcast, and both of us had that, born again moment. It's like
Mhm.
looking back at who you were and who you are. It's like a totally different person.
Mhm.
And it's also really important for people to see you can come from the depths and come out and recreate your life. And you have so much power to do that.
It's finding that inner wisdom, that inner light, right? And being able, even in that really, really, really dark space, being able to just take the tiniest step forward, and understand you're worth it to be able to find that other side and do the work. And there's nothing necessarily fun about it, but it's sad to me the number of people who are willing to stay in the relationship or willing to stay stuck in the business or willing to stay, because it's familiar,
Yeah.
right? And if they would be willing to just kind of push through and sit in a little bit of the not so much fun, there's a brilliant life on the other side of that. I have found over the last few years as I have changed and as I have started doing, when I did the work on myself and became who I really was, that some of the friends from that part of my life fell away too,
Hmm.
because I had changed. I had become, such a new person, and that, you know, they fell away as well. So,
Yeah, I think that we definitely lose certain friends, and it's a good thing. I
mhm,
think that you relationships are fluid and they're changeable. And as we grow, relationships will be outgrown, some of them.
yep.
Some of them, you become hyper aware of certain things as you're becoming more enlightened. You had the four agreements. Some people never heard of the four agreements. And to me,
Mhm,
those are like such a golden rule to live by. They're brilliant. They're so simple and so brilliant. And then you start seeing like some people are living very small lives, and some people are just all about the gossip, and you kind of got sucked into that, and
mhm.
now you don't want to do that anymore. And how do you navigate like all of these changes? And
Right, right.
so as you were going through that, tell us a little more about the steps you took to get to where you are today.
Well, I had to kind of pull back a bit and let go of other people's expectations of me, for sure. I was a people pleaser, no doubt about it. I was no challenged. You know, I wanted to say yes to everybody and everything because I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to be not popular, but I mean, I wanted to be in the group, right? And so I really needed to step back and start saying no to things. It is a complete sentence. I didn't have to give an explanation. No is okay. Um, and then really do some of that internal work, peeling back the layers and figuring out how had I let myself get into in the position that I was. How had I allowed so much of the people pleasing to go on and the fixing to go on, or that I was trying to fix, right? And instead of being empathetic and supportive, but also remembering who I am. And so there was a lot of journaling. There was a coach that I had at the time too, to kind of talk it through and figure out some of the reasons. Um, you know, one of the questions the coach asked me, which was a pivotal thing, was, "What are you pretending not to know?"
Love that question.
Wow. Right? I was like, okay, that was enlightening when you really started to understand, all that I was pretending not to know, right? And really start taking ownership of that. So, and like I said, I mean, I've been married at that point about 27 years. We had dated. We met in high school. We were high school sweethearts and had 3 kids, and so, I was definitely trying to work on the marriage as well. I didn't necessarily want to see it end in divorce, but I also knew that I couldn't hold on to that. I needed to do what I needed to do to make me the better person, the best person that I could be, and allow people to fall away. So that meant I did some classes, a lot of personal development work, books, my own process that I ended up creating, out of this at the end, that I call the Yes Method. But, really figuring out what some of those triggers were for me, owning my fear and learning how to step through it, sit in the ambiguity. That's a tough one. I am one who, yeah, I was re-challenged with that in this whole mortgage thing. That was, yeah, the unknown is a hard one. But and then go out and live it. Really, really step into it and be okay with other not living up to other people's expectations and being exactly who I am, not worrying
Yeah.
about what other people think of me. You know,
Isn't it crazy that to be ourselves is like the hardest thing? It just
right?
seems so like, why can't we just be ourselves? Because we spend
Yeah.
a whole lifetime trying to fit in, trying to be liked, trying to be accepted, because that's
Mhm.
also a very strong human need to not be rejected from the tribe. It's
Right.
unsafe, but to do it in a way that feels authentic. And
Hmm.
that is the process. It's how do you even tune into who are you? What are your needs? What are your
Hmm.
values? Like nobody does that work, hardly anybody does that work as a young person, to
Yeah.
really tune in. And I think more kids are doing it today than ever before. There's
Hmm.
so much more celebration of people wherever they are, but it's still hard. It's still
Hmm.
hard. And but what I want to really convey is that even though the work is uncomfortable and can really challenge you, what's available on the other side of that work is so joyous, and
Absolutely.
you're living in alignment. You're not trying to twist yourself into a pretzel anymore to make other people happy. And that is huge.
Yeah. I have found as I live more in alignment with my values, my core values, all my decisions are based on my core values: faith, family, freedom, and making a difference. Those are them. And when anything comes up, I'm living by those values. But it can make such a difference in how things are responded to. The flow just starts, right? I mean, it's for me, it's a when I act in faith and things are right, there's a flow that goes along with that. Right. And so my life was not flowing before. It was very stuck. And, things were not happening the way they should be. And but when I started to allow and do the work, and now, like you said, the joy that comes from that, and seeing the joy in every little moment, right? Seeing the joy in the sunrise or the sunset, seeing the joy in a small child, playing at the park or walking past at the mall or in the little cart at the grocery store, right? Or the notes that I get from a client about what the aha that they've had, and celebrating that joy with them. Um, you know i am I am in a much better place. I'm a happy person filled with joy and gratitude, but I do believe it is about having it from that place of gratitude and being grateful for all the challenges that we're presented with, and understanding that there's a lesson that goes with all of them. I'm a much
Yeah.
better person, with everything I've learned along the way, right? Yeah.
Well, having that kind of clarity, I mean, you just rattled off your values in a second because you're so clear about it. And most
Hmm.
people are wishy-washy. And when you're not clear about who you are and what you stand for, you can't take a stand for anything because you're standing for
Right.
everything. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
And then you
Yeah.
become somebody's option. You don't become an important person to people because you're too amorphous.
Hmm. Hmm.
So staking your claim and being who you are and fully showing up is such a big part of all of this. I mean, my whole motto for the Woman of Value is to show up, stand up, and speak up. It is so important, but you need to start with showing up. You can't be hiding. You can't play bigger if you're hiding.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
So I'd love to hear your yes method. I think this is a good place to share it and help people who want to get to that next level.
Right. Okay. Well, it's a 5-step process that I take a lot of people through, and it's actually in the process is actually in my book too. So, but you start basically with figuring out where your values are. That's the very first exercise I have people do, and it's a little deeper than the usual value exercise, in that it starts with the bunch of words as usual, and it narrows it down, and in the very end you end up putting those values into an action sentence. So, by living your faith every day and by making a difference. And so it helps kind of cement those values for somebody to understand them. And then figuring out, what is your big dream? I think as women and people in general, we are taught that, yeah, it's great to have a dream, but it's a dream and it's a wish and it's a prayer and it's gonna, happen. And you've got to have the dream, but you've also got to have the goals and the tasks that go along with that, which come later in the process. But really having that big dream, where do you want to be, years down the line? Are you, wanting to live somewhere different? Are you wanting to travel? Do you want to be married or not? Do you want kids? What does your business look like? So it's really taking people through that process of understanding, really, if they could create it, what would it look like? Really, what would it look like? And getting really clear on that. The second step is going through the owning your yes. So the first one is discovering it. The second one is owning your yes. And this is where we step into the idea of what's holding you back and your fears, making fear your fuel. I think so many of us get stuck thinking, well, like you said, hiding. You don't want to step up into it. You're worried what somebody's going to say or think. What if I'm a success? What if I'm a failure? What if right? It's all that that little voice gets very loud. And so it's really owning those fears, understanding what they are, and being able to turn that around and take that fear and make it your fuel to move forward. The next step is to love your yes. Um, And where I go with that is the fact it's all about commitments versus obligations. And, we have those dreams, we figure out how to get past the fear, and then we come up with every excuse in the book why we can't do it, why we can't have it, why, right? It's always amazing to me when, when I'm talking to somebody, no, 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 really understanding it's the excuses that are holding you back, and if you're really committed to what your big dreams are, what your big goals are, where you want to go with life, you can make that happen. But you need to say yes to that, and getting really clear about your commitments versus your obligations. What I mean with that is, what you're committed to, where you're going to spend your time, who you're going to spend your time with, what's most important, and saying yes to those things. And then the obligations, letting them go, learning how to say a firm no. When you're asked to go do something you really don't want to do, or be with people you really don't want to be with. I realize we all have some obligations we have to live with, but really getting clear about what those are and staying in the commitment side of things. From that, it's designing your yes, designing your life. And that's where I take people through, really getting clear on what those big goals are. And then you got to get to the tasks. So, if your dream is to have your own home, what does that look like in, a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now? When's the, really getting specific about how you're going to make that dream come true, and setting a timeline, putting it into place, and at least so that every day when you're getting up what that, 1 or 2 or 3 things is that you need to get done. The must-dos, the 3 must-dos is what I talk about for that day. And then the final step is to go out and live it. Really embody it, embrace it, and live it. Show up, like you said, stand up, be willing to be exactly who you were meant to be, not worried about what other people think, what other people expect, and really daring to be exactly who you are in all areas. So I know I make it sound like it's easy. Bada bing, bada boom, but no. It's a process.
No, it's a beautiful process. I love this system. It's very clear, and it doesn't look easy, but it looks doable. And I think that often people think it's not doable for me. I can't. Somebody else can. A person like me, no. But it's scary. It is scary to have success. Like you said, some people are so afraid of success, of what will happen if. And I used to have those fears when I was still married. I was an artist, a working artist, and I would dream of having my designs on, wallpaper and all these different items, and then I would have this moment of total panic. What will happen if I get too big, and how will I handle it? And I have 3 kids, and and it was just like this fear of being bigger. And now, like you, I see the big in somebody else, and it's hard to look at somebody diminishing their big.
Yes, it definitely is. It's as a client, it's great that I'll ask permission to be able to point something out or bring it out, but it's sad. It's sad to me that when you see somebody who's got such potential and something that they could really make a difference in the world, make a difference in their life, make a be the change for somebody else, but they're afraid to step into that themselves. Finding the way to encourage it.
It's interesting because before you said when you were in the marriage and the fixing had to stop. I think that, it makes us feel useful when we can somehow fix somebody, and recognizing when someone's toxic to us and they are not fixable. They are not ready to hear what would make their lives better or how they can improve their relationship with you, and knowing when to step away and let go. It's a big thing. It's a big shift. Because you can stay forever. I mean, I stayed 23 years, you stayed 27, 28, 27?
It was 29 by the time we actually divorced legally. So yeah, I mean, it was about 28 when we finally separated. So
yeah, it's a long time.
And even my son too, I mean, he was in the throes of some really dark stuff, and, until I let go, he wasn't able to step into, helping himself too. And he did, right? So we try, I mean, as a mom, as a wife, as right, whoever, we try to, but yeah, bless and release.
Yes. And what we learned in coaching school was that people are creative, resourceful, and whole.
Hmm.
And we need to see them as such and support them in helping themselves.
Exactly.
It doesn't help us to do it for them. It is
Mm-mm.
so disempowering to do that.
Hmm.
So it's one of the hardest things to do, is to say, I trust you. I am here for you. I have tools for you if you're ready to hear them. I'm here with you. I stand by you.
Right.
I sit with you. I hold space for you. Instead of, I have all the answers. You just need to
Right.
listen to me.
Exactly.
So, where do you struggle today, if anywhere, like with your yes or your no?
Hmm. Well, of course, we all struggle at times, right? I'm not perfect. I'm
Oh,
far
come
from
on.
it. Right. But I think I have more of the tools and resources to be able to turn myself around more quickly than I did before. I mentioned the mortgage that I've been, going through. Right. And, in the process, one of my big dreams was to own some sort of my own space again. Doesn't need to be a big house, but something. And was made aware of the potential that I could actually afford this condo on my own. And if you've ever been through getting a mortgage, the craziness of all the stuff they want at the last minute. And I found myself even one day in a swirl of just the panic and the unknown and what's this going to work, right? And getting clear about, all right, this is not doing anybody good. And I really just for me, I need to be able to give it up and let it go. And whatever is meant to be, this or greater will transpire. And so bringing myself back to center. Um, but I also do that, every morning. I start with kind of a ritual for myself in journaling and prayer. And that's really what helps keep me grounded on a daily basis, or
Mm.
helps me remember it, recall it, come back to center. So yes, but I think we all still at times struggle one way or the other.
Yeah, and it's important to remind people of our humanity.
Hmm.
And something else that you said that I want to highlight is the speed with which you process.
Hmm.
That is the big shift. And while I've watched a client over the last, I don't know, like 10 years, we've been working together in business.
Hmm.
And she has grown so tremendously that, coming from people pleasing and lack of clarity and all the things you mentioned, to the point where she still wants to help people, she wants to be there, but she knows where she ends and other people begin. And
Hmm.
where she might have ruminated and made it about her deficits in the past when something didn't work out, she now sees, you know what, this isn't about me. And this isn't about my power or my authenticity or who I am. This is
Right.
about this relationship, and it's not working. For her to be able to get there was so huge. And it's like, as a coach, to sit back and watch that process is so beautiful. But it's the processing. It's like the shifts happen and we don't always see them. And sometimes having somebody reflect it back to us is like, oh wow, it
Hmm.
felt really
Hmm.
hard, but that was faster than it would have been 5 years ago, right?
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely.
I just
Awareness.
remortgaged my house.
Oh, so you know what I'm talking about.
I do, and actually, I just got a text before from my attorney, to just check and see if everything went through. But it just happened last week, so I've been trying to remortgage for a long time. And I bought my first house after my divorce. It's the scariest thing. It's like, how am I going to pay these bills? And and then all the bank laws changed, and as a self-employed woman, I was struggling to get a better
Hmm.
rate, and but I kept
Hmm.
persisting until I found it. And again, it's like, don't give up on the things that are important to you,
Yeah.
and know when to back off, know when to let go.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, Kathy, let's talk about the future for a moment. What
Yeah.
is your vision for your future, for the future of yourself and for others?
Right. So the vision for my future, as I mentioned that had just I'm closing on a place here, but I also bought a place in Scotland, and so my vision for me is to be bicontinental and working with women around the globe, really. Um, and being able to support other women in living their yes. Living your yes is all about living your truth. And to live your truth, you really need to dare to be you and step up into, what that looks like for you, and being able to support women and men, for that matter, anybody who's really willing to do the work and thrive in that environment. So I think it's hard. I struggled. It's sad to see people, and I used to be somebody who would really, struggle myself in trying to be the real me and be authentic and, live that greater life purpose that I'm meant to live. And so now to be able to be moving forward in that direction and to be able to support others in that. My goal is always, even with the book launch, if there's one woman who can read it and have that aha moment for herself of, yeah, darn it, yes, I can, right? And step into what it is for them, then I've been successful, and that's really what I pray for. So, so that's kind of what's for me. We'll be doing a Dare to Be You event coming up next year. But it's really all about, supporting women to be able to really step into their real self, be them.
I love
Dare to be
how
them.
authentic you are and how you're walking your talk.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I don't know. It's been a road. It's been a journey, but I do feel, even the stuff with my son. I had written a book a few years ago about, the struggles that I'd had with him, and I do feel, because I am willing. I'm kind of an open book, which is good and bad, but I do feel that, not an obligation, but a desire, since I'm willing to share it, that I hope it also helps, like you, to shed light for others that, there's so much possible if you're willing to just step forward, stand up, step into it.
Yeah. When we share our stories, we give other people permission to share theirs and to feel less alone and to feel
Mhm.
that there is support and there is a future for them. I mean, it's powerful. And
Mhm.
I just feel, I never was able to stand on a stage years ago. I was never able to write and publish and do all the things I do today. But to live a bigger life, you have to take those risks and
Mhm.
expose yourself. And
Mhm.
in doing so, you help others. And it's amazing how you think, what's my little story? How's it going to ever affect anybody? And then somebody says, oh my God, you changed my life. You saved my life. I mean, those are the messages that make it all so worthwhile.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll never forget the first time. I'll just a quick story. The first time that I shared on stage, that I didn't have a college degree and that my son was struggling with drug use and that my marriage was failing. And I mean, it was all part of this. And I was literally followed to the bathroom after I got off the stage by women who were in similar situations or circumstances and needed that. They all of a sudden didn't feel like they were the only one in this room of 250 women, right? That were having some of the same issues. So you're right. We're willing to speak it.
So, what is the best advice that you can give to a woman who wants to step into her yes and be more empowered?
Hmm. Well, I think, just even taking little bits from the process, right? Really getting clear, getting some clarity on what those big dreams are for you. Finding some tools that can really help you. Move forward with that, whether it's a coach, whether it's a book, whether it's attending an event, being willing and open to the idea of doing some work on yourself. Getting really clear on what your commitments and obligations are. I think that's a really important one, and becoming committed to you and your bigger goals and your bigger life, and understanding that that's just as important as everybody else's, goals and dreams for you, but really, really owning that. And just being willing to be. I mean, even taking a step back and, there's a saying, what is it? A change of place plus a change of pace equals just a change of perspective. And, if you're willing to just, take a walk, go to the park, go to Scotland for 3 months, whatever it is for you, right? Really removing yourself from the craziness and the chaos sometimes of life. Even if it's just for a half an hour, and really become kind of a little bit grounded in yourself and listen, really listen for what those messages are for you.
Yeah, we don't do that enough. We're just on this treadmill. It's interesting when you talked about getting on the treadmill at the gym. And I was thinking you're getting off the treadmill. And we're just fast paced. We only know how to identify ourselves through the doing. And the being is such an important part. And it's so hard to just feel like you're wasting time. And
Yes.
but that is how we come up with the great ideas. My boundaries course idea came to me in the shower. It was just like I had one of those
Shower is a
shower
great one,
moments.
right?
Walking in nature, taking off your shoes and feeling the floor with your feet, feeling the ground outside if it's not freezing cold like it is here on the East Coast today.
Yeah.
But like really just grounding yourself, however you do it, is such a good thing to do.
If I could just share a quick story about that. When I went to Scotland, I knew that I had been called to spend some time there. I felt a physical calling to be there. And I knew I had a book in me. There was something brewing. Wasn't quite sure what. And I got there and I arrived and it was literally pouring rain. I arrived with the flu. My girlfriend who lives there, went to get me some food and she came back and I had taken my suitcase and emptied it and I put my piles of work on the, mind you, then I'm under the blanket with 103. And she just starts laughing. She's like, what do you think you're doing? I get you have a book in you. Well, let me tell you, it took 6 weeks before I could really, the book could really start to download. I mean, I needed time to decompress. And this is a very small island off the coast, west coast of Scotland. 1,200 people, right? I needed to spend time in nature. I was walking outside every day in the cold and the rain, just being. And you're right. We have a really hard time with that because then you feel like you should be doing this and you should be doing that. And why do I, right? But it wasn't until I was able to get quiet inside that I was really able to hear what the call was for me and the book. And then everything started to download after that. So, however you can find some of that quiet time, again, like I said, whether it's a half an hour somewhere or a longer period, but I do think it's a really important thing.
Yeah.
Being able to be.
It's a great story.
Yeah.
We can't be our best if we're constantly in motion. And I have one client doing morning pages from The Artist's Way. She wakes up every morning now, and that's been the thing that stuck with her. I think a lot of people that wake up in the morning, they immediately go to answering emails, to helping other people, to not taking care of yourself. And when you do that, you've already started your day with the wrong energy. And so just finding your morning routine, finding a ritual that works for you, whether it's, turning the news off and not contaminating your mind with that, but dancing, singing, just whatever it is. I love my morning coffee and I have a whole ritual around that. And so it's, nurture you and it starts to help percolate all the good stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it.
So finally, Cathy, how would you like to be remembered?
How would I like to be remembered? Oh gosh. I guess how I would like to be remembered is somebody who was willing to give to others, and support others, but also be willing to care for myself. Like you said earlier, walk my talk, right? I am all about leading by example, and I hope that the things that I share will help to inspire and empower others to be able to find their yes and to live it boldly, bravely, and courageously.
Beautiful.
Thank you
for sharing your story, for sharing your journey to empower other people to step into their yes and step into their best life.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
If you would like to step more fully into your value, grab a free copy of The Ultimate Guide to Becoming a Woman of Value on my website, thewomanofvalue.com. Just click the link at the top of the homepage. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to click the subscribe button in your listening app. And if there's something in this episode that inspired you, please share it with others, because the more we share these inspirational stories, the more women of value we will have in this world. I'll see you next time.